The insistent, grating buzz of his phone was a physical assault on Ethan's ears, pulling him from the digital battlefield where victory had been tantalizingly close. His fingers, trained for rapid-fire clicks and precise movements, twitched with phantom urges to return to the glowing screen, to the adrenaline rush of virtual combat. He slammed his phone face down on his desk, the plastic protesting with a sharp click that echoed in the dim, air-conditioned cave of his room. "Seriously, Dad? Now?" He muttered, the words thick with teenage indignation, a familiar whine in his voice. The faint scent of stale pizza and energy drink lingered in the air, a testament to his recent nocturnal endeavors, the remnants of a life lived largely online. Outside, the California sun blazed, a relentless golden assault, but inside, Ethan preferred the artificial glow of his monitor, the controlled environment of his digital domain. He had spent countless hours perfecting his gaming strategy, his reflexes honed, his mind sharp, but all that felt utterly useless now, reduced to a distant, irrelevant hum, a skill set for a world that was about to disappear. His father, a man perpetually clad in business casual, stood framed in the doorway, a solemn expression etched onto his face. The fluorescent light from the hallway seemed to highlight the lines of worry around his eyes, lines Ethan rarely noticed, too engrossed in his own world, too busy navigating pixelated landscapes to pay attention to the real ones. "Ethan, we need to talk. It's about Grandpa Arthur." Ethan braced himself, a knot forming in his stomach. Grandpa Arthur, his father's father, a distant, almost mythical figure who lived in some far-off European city called Prague. Their connection was tenuous, a fragile thread woven through occasional, obligatory Christmas cards and brief, awkward video calls where Arthur's heavily accented English struggled against the crackling connection, making communication more of a polite mime than a genuine conversation. Ethan usually just waved awkwardly, mumbled a quick "Hi, Grandpa," and retreated to the safety of his headphones, the barrier between his world and theirs, a convenient escape. "Is he okay?" Ethan asked, a flicker of genuine concern cutting through his annoyance, a brief respite from his self-absorption. He knew his grandfather was old, but not okay was a new, unsettling concept, a disruption to his carefully curated summer plans. "He's not well. The doctors say he needs constant care now. And with your grandmother gone, he's alone." His father sighed, running a hand through his already neat hair, a gesture of weary resignation that spoke volumes, a burden he seemed to carry, a weight he was now trying to shift. "Your mother and I, we've talked. We need someone to be with him, at least for the summer. And you're 19, you're old enough. You can do this. It's important, Ethan, a family responsibility. You're the only one who can go right now. We can't just leave him. He has no one else." Ethan's jaw dropped. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication, crushing his summer dreams beneath their weight like an invisible concrete slab. "Me? Go to Prague? For the whole summer? Dad, my friends and I have plans. The beach trip, the gaming tournaments, Sarah's pool parties. You know how much I was looking forward to this? This is my last summer before college. I was going to get a job, save some money, finally have some freedom." His voice rose with each protest, a symphony of youthful entitlement, laced with genuine panic. "I don't even speak Czech. What am I supposed to do there? How am I supposed to take care of someone if I can't even ask where the bathroom is? It's insane. It's totally unfair. You can't just send me off to a random country I know nothing about, where I don't know anyone, where I'll be completely miserable." He gestured wildly, his hands emphasizing the injustice of it all, his face contorted in disbelief, unable to process the sudden, drastic change to his meticulously planned future. "You'll learn," his father said, his voice firm, leaving no room for argument. The finality in his tone was absolute, like a gavel striking a verdict, sealing his fate. It's your family, Ethan. Our family. Your grandfather needs us. And frankly, it'll do you good to get off that screen and see something of the world. See where we come from. It's important, son. A responsibility you need to take. This isn't a request, it's a necessity. We've already booked the flight. You leave next week. The words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding, like a sentence. Ethan's summer, once a vibrant tapestry of freedom and fun, meticulously planned down to the last late-night gaming session and beach bonfire, had just been ripped to shreds, replaced by a dreary, foreign obligation. He spent the next few days in a fog of resentment, a dark cloud clinging to him like a second skin, muttering under his breath, slamming doors, retreating further into himself, into the only world he felt he controlled. He packed a suitcase with a sullen efficiency, each item feeling like a concession to an unfair fate, a surrender to a life he didn't want. His favorite hoodie, his gaming headset, his well-worn sneakers, they felt out of place, destined for a summer of boredom and isolation. A cultural wasteland where his skills were useless, his identity stripped away. His friends offered sympathetic shrugs and promises to video call, but their words felt hollow, already fading into the background of his impending exile. He knew deep down that a summer spent caring for an ailing relative in a foreign country wasn't exactly prime material for their group chat. He imagined the pitying glances, the awkward silences, the inevitable shift in their dynamic. He was already a ghost to them, a forgotten player in their summer game. The thought of being disconnected, truly disconnected, from his digital life, from the constant stream of updates and notifications, filled him with a cold dread, a profound sense of loss, like a limb had been amputated. The flight was long, an interminable stretch of recycled air and the droning hum of the engines. Ethan tried to lose himself in movies and music, but his mind kept replaying the arguments, the missed opportunities, the looming dread of Prague. Every passing hour felt like a minute stolen from his youth, a minute he could have spent doing something, anything else. He managed restless sleep, punctuated by jolts awake, his neck stiff, his mood sour. He watched the tiny map on the seatback screen, seeing the plane inching eastward, further and further from everything he knew. Every familiar comfort, every landmark of his existence, every pixelated world he had conquered. He felt a growing sense of detachment from his own life, as if he were watching it recede into the distance, shrinking to a tiny dot, becoming irrelevant. When the plane finally descended through a patchwork of clouds, revealing a city of red roofs and spires, Ethan felt no excitement, only a deeper sense of dread, a tightening in his chest, a knot of anxiety that seemed to constrict his breathing. Prague. It looked old, really old. Not like the sleek, modern skyscrapers of his hometown, the sprawling shopping malls, or the wide, manicured streets. This was a jumble of ancient buildings, their facades worn by centuries, narrow, winding streets that looked impassable, and what looked like a massive, brooding castle dominating the skyline, casting a long shadow over everything. It felt like stepping into a history book, one he hadn't chosen to read, one he was being forced to live, page by dusty page, a story he had no interest in, a language he couldn't speak. A taxi smelling faintly of stale cigarettes and something vaguely floral that Ethan couldn't quite place. A scent that clung to the upholstery, a foreign perfume, wove through cobblestone streets that seemed too narrow for cars. Their ancient stones rattling the vehicle, jarring his teeth with every bump. The buildings pressed in, their facades adorned with intricate carvings, faded frescoes, and ornate ironwork, each one a testament to forgotten artists and bygone eras, a silent gallery of history he felt no connection to. Every corner seemed to reveal another architectural marvel, a Gothic archway, a Baroque facade, a Renaissance window that to Ethan, it was just a claustrophobic maze, a jumble of stone and faded grandeur that felt oppressive, suffocating, closing in on him, stealing his air. People walked with a slower gait, their conversations a melodic murmur in a language Ethan couldn't decipher, a constant, unintelligible hum that made him feel even more alien. An outsider looking in, completely disconnected, unable to understand or be understood. He clutched his phone, its familiar weight a small comfort in this overwhelming new environment, though it offered no signal, a useless brick in his hand, a symbol of his isolation, a tangible representation of his lost connection. It was disorienting, a sensory overload that left him feeling utterly out of place, like a glitch in the Matrix, dropped into a world that operated on entirely different rules. Rules he didn't understand and didn't want to learn. Rules that felt ancient and irrelevant, a burden he was forced to carry. Grandpa Arthur's apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that looked like it had stood for centuries, its stone facade, scarred by time, its windows gazing out like ancient eyes, watching the city unfold, silently judging. No elevator. Ethan dragged his suitcase up the winding, creaking stairs, each step a protest from the ancient wood. The effort making him sweat and his muscles ache, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his resentment building with every riser, every creak, every echo in the stairwell. The air grew heavier with each floor, thick with the scent of old wood, dust, and something vaguely medicinal, like forgotten herbs or simmering broth, a smell that felt both foreign and oddly comforting, a strange contradiction, a hint of something familiar in the unfamiliar. Sunlight filtered through lace curtains, illuminating motes dancing in the air, caught in the golden shafts, making the dust visible, a testament to the passage of time. Every piece of furniture seemed to have a story, a history etched into its polished surface, a silent testament to lives lived within these walls. Lives Ethan knew nothing about, lives that felt utterly alien to his own, lives that felt too heavy, too profound for him to grasp. Grandpa Arthur sat in an armchair by the window, a thin, patterned blanket over his legs, his gaze fixed on the street below, observing the slow dance of daily life, a silent sentinel. He was smaller than Ethan remembered, his frame frail, his shoulders stooped with age, his face a roadmap of wrinkles that seemed to hold 1,000 untold stories, each line a testament to time and experience, to joy and sorrow, to hardship and resilience. But his eyes, a startling, piercing blue, held a keen, intelligent spark that belied his physical weakness. A flicker of something unyielding, a deep reservoir of life, a quiet strength that emanated from him. A silent challenge, a silent invitation to look deeper. "Ethan," he said. His voice raspy but warm, his English heavily accented, each word carefully articulated, as if tasting them before speaking, savoring their sound, drawing them out. "You came, good. I am glad. It is a long journey. You must be tired. Sit, sit." He gestured to a worn wooden chair opposite him, its cushion flattened with years of use, a silent invitation to rest, to be present. Ethan managed a stiff smile, feeling a profound awkwardness settle over him, thick and suffocating. "Hi, Grandpa." "Dad sent me." He felt clumsy, unsure how to bridge the chasm of years and miles, the cultural divide that felt like an ocean, the unspoken history between them, the weight of expectation. He fumbled with the suitcase, setting it down with a thud that echoed in the quiet room. He had no idea what to say, what to do, how to begin this unwanted summer, this forced intimacy with a stranger who was technically family. He just wanted to disappear, to be back in his own room, in his own world, where the rules made sense, where he didn't feel so utterly out of place. Their first few days were a steady in polite, uncomfortable silences. Ethan tried to help, genuinely, but he felt clumsy and inept, a bull in a china shop, constantly bumping into things, knocking over small, delicate ornaments that seemed to be everywhere, each one a potential disaster. He'd offer his grandfather water, only to realize the glass was already full. He'd attempt to make a simple meal, armed with vague instructions from his dad, and a quickly downloaded translation app that proved more confusing than helpful. Its robotic voice failing to capture the nuances of Czech, making every interaction a linguistic minefield. He'd stare at the foreign labels in the small, unfamiliar grocery store, feeling utterly lost, overwhelmed by the sheer number of unknown products. The kitchen was stocked with ingredients he didn't recognize, strange root vegetables, unfamiliar spices, and cuts of meat he'd never seen. The stove was a relic from another era, its knobs mysterious, its flame temperamental, refusing to cooperate, making simple tasks feel like complex engineering problems, demanding a level of patience he didn't possess. He burned toast, overcooked pasta, and once nearly set off the smoke detector trying to fry an egg, filling the small apartment with acrid smoke and his own frustrated sighs, his cheeks burning with embarrassment, his incompetence laid bare. Grandpa Arthur would watch him with a patient, amused expression, sometimes offering a single, untranslatable Czech word that sounded like a gentle correction, a soft cluck of his tongue, or a faint, knowing smile that made Ethan feel even more inadequate, even more like a burden. Ethan would just shrug, feeling utterly useless, a burden rather than a help, a failure at the most basic tasks. He spent most of his time hunched over his phone, a lifeline to his old life, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy, a desperate clinging to the familiar, to the only world he understood. He'd scroll through social media, seeing photos of his friends at the beach, their faces carefree and sun-kissed, their laughter almost audible through the screen, a distant, mocking echo of the fun he was missing, a constant reminder of what he had lost, what he was missing out on. He'd try to join their gaming sessions, but the Wi-Fi was spotty, cutting out at critical moments, causing him to lose matches, and infuriating his online teammates, leading to angry messages he couldn't even properly respond to, further isolating him. The 6-hour time difference made real-time conversations impossible, reducing his interactions to delayed, generic replies, making him feel even more disconnected, a ghost in his own digital life. He felt isolated, adrift in a sea of foreignness, a digital ghost haunting his own past, unable to fully connect with either world, stuck in a liminal space between two realities. The vibrant, noisy world of his American life felt impossibly far away, fading into a blurry memory. Like a dream upon waking, its colors leaching away, leaving him in a monochrome reality, a dull, uninteresting existence, a prison of his own making. He'd watch his grandfather, who moved with a slow, deliberate grace despite his frailty. Arthur would sit by the window for hours, simply watching the street below, sometimes humming a tune Ethan didn't know. A soft, melancholic melody that seemed to speak of distant times, of sorrows and joys long past, a quiet soundtrack to his thoughts, a window into his soul, a glimpse of a life lived fully. He seemed content even in his illness, finding solace in the quiet rhythms of the day, in the simple act of observation, a stark contrast to Ethan's agitated boredom and restless energy, his constant need for stimulation, for noise, for action, for something to happen. The quiet dignity of the old man was a mystery to him, a puzzle he didn't know how to solve, a profound difference in their very approach to existence, a chasm between generations and cultures that felt insurmountable, a language barrier of the soul that seemed to keep them miles apart, even in the same room. One afternoon, while trying to decipher the instructions on a box of Czech cereal that looked suspiciously like birdseed, its contents a mystery, a culinary challenge, he was failing miserably. His stomach rumbling in protest, Ethan heard the distinct, rhythmic chime of church bells. It wasn't just one bell, but a symphony of them pealing from different directions, their tones overlapping, and intertwining, filling the air with a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the old stone buildings, through his very bones, a sound that seemed to reach into his very soul, stirring something unfamiliar, a quiet resonance. He looked out the window. The sound seemed to fill the entire neighborhood, a living presence, a pulse, a heartbeat of the city, ancient and enduring. Neighbors emerged from their doorways, not rushing, but strolling, exchanging greetings in rapid check, their voices soft and melodic, punctuated by laughter that sounded genuine and unforced. Like music, a communal chorus, a shared song, a sense of belonging. A woman with a basket of fresh bread, still steaming, its aroma wafting up, mingled with the scent of blooming flowers. Smiled an elderly man tending a window box overflowing with vibrant geraniums, their colors a splash against the ancient stone, a burst of life, a small act of beauty. Children, freed from school, chased each other in the small square below, their joyful shouts echoing off the ancient walls, a sound of pure, unadulterated happiness, a simple, carefree joy that was infectious. It was a scene of quiet communal life, utterly unlike the rushed anonymous interactions he was used to in his sprawling, car-dependent suburb where people drove from isolated house to isolated house, rarely interacting beyond a polite nod, a fleeting glance, a hurried transaction. Here, life seemed to unfold on a human scale, unhurried and interconnected, a gentle dance, a shared existence, a vibrant tapestry of daily ritual, a living, breathing community that welcomed him, even if he didn't understand the words. He found himself drawn to the window more often. He watched the baker across the street, his hands dusted with flour, his apron perpetually white, greeting customers by name, a warm smile always on his face, a personal connection that felt rare and precious, a genuine human interaction that spoke volumes without words. He'd see the same elderly couple walk by every morning, hand in hand, stopping to admire a blooming rosebush, sharing a quiet moment of shared beauty, a silent understanding that transcended words, a lifetime of companionship. There was a rhythm here, a pulse that was slow and steady, like a heartbeat, a comforting constant in a world that had felt so chaotic, so demanding, so relentlessly fast. He still missed his friends, the familiar comfort of his own room, the ease of speaking his own language. But a tiny crack had appeared in his wall of resentment, letting in a sliver of curiosity, a hint of something new and intriguing, something that felt real, tangible, and deeply human, a sense of belonging he hadn't realized he craved, a quiet yearning for connection. One morning, the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted from the kitchen, richer and more inviting than any instant coffee he'd ever made. A truly intoxicating aroma that filled the small apartment, promising warmth and comfort. Grandpa Arthur, surprisingly, was already up, puttering around the small space, a rare burst of energy, a newfound vigor that surprised Ethan, a spark in his movements, a lightness in his step. He turned to Ethan, his blue eyes twinkling, a mischievous glint in them, a hint of anticipation, a shared secret. "Ethan, you like coffee?" he asked, his voice a little stronger than usual, almost eager, like a child with a secret, a shared pleasure he was about to reveal. Ethan, still half asleep, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, nodded. "Yeah, sure, love coffee. But I usually just grab a drive-through. Quick and easy. No fuss." He was surprised by the question, by the initiative, by the idea of going out for coffee, a social ritual he hadn't considered. "Good, we go. Downstairs, my favorite place. Best coffee in Prague, you will see, and best pastries. They have kolasi like my mother used to make." Arthur pointed to the street, a rare gesture of initiative, a clear invitation to share something personal, something he cherished, a piece of his daily life, a memory. Ethan was surprised. His grandfather rarely left the apartment, except for short, assisted trips to the doctor. He helped Arthur dress, a slow, careful process, buttoning shirts, tying shoelaces. feeling a strange sense of responsibility settle over him, a quiet pride in being useful and being needed, a feeling that was slowly replacing his resentment, his sense of being put upon, his self-pity. Together they descended the creaking stairs, Arthur leaning heavily on Ethan's arm, their footsteps echoing in the quiet stairwell, a rhythmic counterpoint to the morning sounds drifting up from the street, distant chatter, the rumble of a tram, the distant church bells, the faint aroma of freshly baked goods, a symphony of urban life. Just a few doors down, tucked into a narrow alley, was a small cafe. It was tiny with only a few tables, its interior cozy and inviting, filled with warm golden light, and smelled heavenly of roasted beans, warm pastries, and something sweet, like cinnamon and vanilla, a symphony of comforting aromas that instantly made Ethan feel at ease, a sense of belonging, a quiet warmth spreading through him. The barista, a girl with bright, intelligent eyes and a cascade of dark, wavy hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, greeted Grandpa Arthur with a warm smile and a stream of rapid, affectionate Czech. Her voice was like liquid sunshine, cheerful and welcoming, a melody that brightened the morning, a cheerful greeting. Arthur responded, his voice surprisingly strong, a hint of playful banter in his tone, a side of his grandfather Ethan hadn't seen, a glimpse into his social life, his connections, his vibrant personality, his hidden depths. She glanced at Ethan, a friendly curiosity in her gaze, a small polite smile, playing on her lips, a hint of amusement in her eyes, as if she knew something he didn't, a secret about Prague, a silent invitation to learn. "This is Adela," Grandpa Arthur introduced, gesturing to the barista with a proud wave of his hand, as if presenting a cherished friend, a precious discovery. "My neighbor's granddaughter. She helps me sometimes. A very good girl, and this is my grandson, Ethan, from America. He is here to take care of me, my summer helper. He is learning Czech." Adela smiled, a genuine, open smile that reached her eyes, crinkling the corners, radiating warmth that seemed to melt away Ethan's awkwardness, his self-consciousness. "Dober den," she said, her voice light and musical. "Welcome to Prague. It is good to finally meet you, Ethan. Your grandfather speaks of you often. He was very excited you were coming. He said you play games." "Video games, yes." Her English was excellent, with just a hint of an accent that Ethan found instantly charming, a soft lilt that made her words sound like music, a gentle invitation to connect, to bridge the gap. Ethan felt a blush creep up his neck, a warmth spreading across his face. Hi, Ethan. Yeah, I play games a lot." He felt awkward, self-conscious, like a clumsy giant in this quaint intimate space, suddenly aware of his rumpled clothes and bedhead feeling exposed under her friendly gaze, yet strangely drawn to the genuine interest in her eyes. Adela laughed softly, a bright, clear sound that made the small cafe feel even warmer, more welcoming, like a burst of sunlight. "I know. Your grandfather talks about you. The American grandson. He says you're a very good helper. And you are here for the summer, yes? For the whole summer?" She poured them 2 coffees, a rich, dark brew for Arthur, steaming gently, and a frothy, milky concoction for Ethan, topped with a swirl of cocoa powder, a tiny leaf design etched into the foam. "This is a latte. I think you will like it. It is our special blend for new friends on the house, a welcome gift. A taste of Prague." Ethan mumbled a thanks, feeling a warmth spread through him that wasn't just from the coffee, but from the unexpected kindness, the genuine welcome, the feeling of being seen, of being accepted, of being truly welcomed. He found himself looking at her, really looking, for the first time since he arrived. Her eyes were a deep hazel, framed by long lashes, and there was an easy confidence in her posture, a quiet strength that radiated from her, an inner light that captivated him, drawing him in, making him forget his phone, his games, his old life. He noticed the delicate silver chain around her neck, a small charm shaped like a Prague, astronomical clock glinting in the soft light, a subtle nod to her heritage, a piece of Praga. She carried with her a symbol of her connection to this place, to its history. Over the next few days, Ethan found himself making excuses to visit the cafe. He'd buy bread for his grandfather, or simply sit with a coffee, nursing it, slowly pretending to read a book, listening to the murmur of Czech conversations, the gentle clinking of cups, the hiss of the espresso machine, and waiting for Adela to have a free moment. She'd chat with him, asking about America, about his life, patiently correcting his pronunciation of Czech words. Děkuji for thank you, prosím for please, pivo for beer, ahoj for hello, nashledanu for goodbye, dobrou noc for goodnight, jak se máš, for how are you, and recommending places to see, not just the famous landmarks, but hidden gems, local spots only a true Praguean would know, places off the beaten tourist path, places that felt authentic, real, imbued with local life. She spoke of her studies, her dreams of becoming a historian, her passion for the city's past. You must see Charles Bridge at sunset, she told him one afternoon, leaning against the counter, wiping it down with a damp cloth, her movements graceful and efficient. It is magic. The statues, the castle, the river, it is like a painting. Every evening, a new masterpiece. The sky turns all colors from fiery orange to soft violet, then deep indigo, a spectacle. Or Petrin Hill, the view is amazing. You can see the whole city, all the red roofs, the spires, like a fairy tale spread out beneath you. Stretching to the horizon, a breathtaking sight. It is a place for contemplation, for dreaming. Ethan, surprisingly, found himself interested. The thought of exploring with her, rather than alone, filled him with a quiet anticipation, a flutter in his stomach that was entirely new, a feeling of excitement he hadn't felt since arriving, a genuine desire to see more, to experience more, to learn. Maybe you could show me sometime? I don't really know my way around, and the guidebooks are kind of boring. I'd probably just get lost and end up in some random alley, and I'd rather see it with someone who knows it. He ventured, his heart doing a nervous little flutter, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time, not since he was a kid asking a girl to the school dance, a feeling of vulnerability and hope, a step outside his comfort zone, a leap of faith. Adela's smile widened, her eyes sparkling with genuine enthusiasm. Yes, I would like that very much. Tomorrow, after my shift. I finish at 5. We can meet here. I will show you my favorite spots, the ones not in the guidebooks, the real Prague. We can walk, and I can tell you stories. Their first real outing was to the Charles Bridge. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the ancient statues, each one a silent sentinel guarding the river, their faces worn by centuries of wind and rain, their expression solemn and wise, imbued with history, telling silent tales of the past. The Vltava River flowed beneath them, its surface shimmering, reflecting the golden light of the setting sun and the majestic silhouette of Prague Castle now bathed in a soft ethereal glow, like something out of a dream, a scene from a forgotten legend brought to life. Adela pointed out details Ethan would have missed, the specific saints on the bridge, their stories etched into the stone, the legends associated with them, tales of miracles and martyrdom of love and betrayal of triumphs and tragedies that had unfolded on these very stones beneath these very skies. She told him stories of Prague, not from a dry guidebook, but from a living, breathing connection to the city, her voice a soft murmur against the gentle breeze that rustled through her dark hair, carrying the scent of summer, of history, of life itself, a narrative that drew him in. This city breathes history, she said, her voice soft, almost reverent, her gaze sweeping across the panorama of the castle and the lesser town, bathed in the golden hour light. Every stone has a story, every alleyway, every building. You just have to listen. You have to feel it. It whispers to you if you're quiet enough. It has so much to tell, so many secrets to reveal, so many lives intertwined within its walls. She pointed to a particular statue, worn smooth by countless touches. They say if you touch the plaque beneath St. John of Nepomuc, you will return to Prague. Many people do it. Ethan, without thinking, reached out and touched the cold, smooth bronze, a silent wish forming in his mind. Ethan found himself listening, not just to her words, but to the sounds of the city, the haunting melodies of the street musicians, a lone clarinet playing a melancholic tune, a mournful accordion, a vibrant violin, their music weaving through the air, creating a rich soundscape. The distant peal of bells echoing from ancient towers, marking the passage of time. A constant, comforting presence, a reminder of continuity, of something larger than himself, something eternal. The lively chatter of tourists and locals mingling on the bridge, a symphony of languages, a vibrant tapestry of human connection, a living, breathing entity, a vibrant pulse. He felt a sense of peace he hadn't known he was missing, a quiet contentment settling over him, replacing the restless hum that usually vibrated beneath his skin, the constant need for digital stimulation, for noise, for distraction. He even took a few photos with his phone, not to send to friends, not to prove he was somewhere cool, but to capture the beauty he was finally seeing, truly experiencing for himself, for his own. Memory, a personal treasure, he would cherish a moment of pure, unfiltered joy. He looked at Adela, her face illuminated by the setting sun, her eyes, reflecting the golden light, and felt a connection that went beyond words. A silent understanding, a shared moment of profound beauty that transcended language and culture, a bond forming between them that felt ancient and new all at once. Back at the apartment, the conversations with Grandpa Arthur slowly deepened. Ethan, encouraged by Adela's patience and his own burgeoning curiosity, started trying out basic Czech phrases he'd learned from her. Dobry večer for good evening, Jaxi mate for how are you, Pivo prosím for a beer, please, Dobry den for good day, Děkuji moc for thank you very much, Prosím vás for please, Na zdraví for cheers. He even began to pick up on the rhythm of the language, the way certain words flowed into each other, the subtle inflections, the emphasis, the musicality of it. Arthur, in turn, began sharing more, his stories flowing like the Vltava itself, sometimes haltingly, sometimes with a surprising surge of energy, as if the memories themselves were invigorating him, bringing him back to life, making him younger, his eyes sparkling with a youthful fire. He'd talk about growing up in Prague in the 1930s, the changes he'd seen, the vibrancy of the pre-war city. A golden age he remembered with fondness, a time of innocence before the storm, before the darkness descended, before the world changed forever, before the war. He spoke of the war, but vaguely at first, hinting at hardships and loss, without going into explicit detail, as if the memories were too heavy to bear all at once. Too painful to articulate fully a burden he had carried silently for decades, a weight on his soul that he was only now beginning to share. Slowly, cautiously testing the waters. One rainy afternoon, the kind of day that invites introspection, the sky a muted gray, the rain a soft patter against the window pane, creating a soothing backdrop, a gentle rhythm. While helping his grandfather tidy a dusty old chest in the corner of the living room, a forgotten relic of the past, its wood dark and heavy, its hinges protesting with a groan, Ethan's hand brushed against something hard and metallic wrapped in a faded, coarse cloth. He pulled it out. It was a collection of medals, tarnished with age, their ribbons brittle, and a small, worn leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed and fragile, filled with cramped, faded Czech script, almost illegible, a testament to a life lived, a story waiting to be told, a secret waiting to be unearthed. Grandpa? Ethan asked, his voice hushed, holding up the medals, their weight surprisingly heavy in his palm. feeling the cold metal against his skin, a tangible link to a distant past, a silent question hanging in the air, demanding an answer. What are these? Were you in the war? What did you do? Were you a soldier? Arthur's eyes, usually so bright, clouded over for a moment, a shadow passing over them, as if he were looking into a distant, painful past, a world of darkness and struggle, a time he rarely revisited, a time he wished to forget. He took the metals, his gnarled fingers tracing the intricate designs, a distant look in his gaze, a profound sadness settling over his features, a deep weariness that seemed to age him further. Old things, he murmured, his voice barely a whisper, a sigh escaping his lips, heavy with unspoken memories, with the weight of history, with the ghosts of friends lost. From a long time ago, a different life, a different world, a time of great darkness, a time when Prague suffered, when we all suffered, when we fought for our very existence. Ethan pressed him, gently but persistently, sensing a deeper story beneath the surface. A story that needed to be told, a legacy that needed to be understood, a truth that had been hidden, buried under decades of silence. Were you in the war? World War II? Dad said you were from here during the war. He said you were involved. He said you did something important, something brave. What was it? What did you do? Arthur hesitated, his gaze fixed on the metals, then nodded slowly, a deep sigh escaping his lips, as if releasing a long-held burden. A secret he had carried for too long, a weight that had settled in his bones and his very soul. Yes, I was young. Too young, maybe, just a boy really, but everyone had to do something. The city, she was suffering. Our people, they were suffering. We could not just stand by. We had to resist. We had to fight for what was right, for our freedom. Over the next few days, piecemeal, in hushed tones that seemed to fill the quiet apartment, making the air thick with history, with the ghosts of the past, Grandpa Arthur began to tell his story. He wasn't a soldier in the traditional sense, not one who wore a uniform and fought on the front lines, not a hero of grand battles, not a figure from a propaganda poster. He was a part of the Czech resistance, a network of ordinary citizens who defied the Nazi occupation in countless small, courageous ways, acts of quiet rebellion that chipped away at the oppressor's power, acts of defiance that risked everything, their lives, their families, their futures. He spoke of the occupation, the pervasive fear that hung in the air like a shroud, the constant threat of discovery, the quiet acts of defiance that could mean life or death, a knock on the door in the middle of the night, a sudden disappearance, a betrayal, a brutal interrogation, a public execution. He described how, as a young man barely older than Ethan, he'd used his intimate knowledge of Prague's labyrinthine alleys, hidden courtyards, and secret passages to move messages, smuggle supplies, and even help people escape. We were just ordinary people. Arthur recounted, his voice gaining strength with the memories, his eyes alight with a distant fire. A flicker of the young man he once was, full of resolve, full of purpose, full of a quiet fury. Students, bakers, shopkeepers, artists. We had no guns, no tanks, but we had our wits, our courage, our love for Prague. We had to fight for our city, for our freedom, for our soul. If we did not, who would? Who would remember? Who would stand up against the darkness? Who would ensure our future? Who would keep the flame alive? He spoke of the constant tension, the whispered meetings in cellars, the coded messages passed in plain sight, hidden in newspapers or flower bouquets, in the folds of laundry, in seemingly innocent conversations, in the exchange of a simple glance, a nod, a subtle gesture. He described the terror of hearing Gestapo raids in the night, the chilling quiet that followed, the fear of the unknown, the constant vigilance, the paranoia that seeped into every interaction, every shadow, every corner of their lives. He remembered the faces of friends who simply vanished, The empty chairs at the cafe, the hushed rumors that spread like wildfire, tales of horror and defiance, of torture and bravery. He spoke of the hunger, the cold, the constant presence of the enemy, the feeling of being watched, always the loss of freedom, the indignity. He spoke of a specific night, cold and dark, the kind of night where the cobblestones gleamed with rain and the shadows, stretched long and menacing, swallowing everything, making the city a place of secrets, a stage for desperate acts of survival and heroism. He had guided a group of Jewish families, a mother, a father, and 2 small children, their faces pale with fear, their eyes wide with terror, their small hands clutching his coat, their only hope, their last chance. Through a series of underground tunnels, beneath the very streets, Ethan had walked with Adela to a safe house on the outskirts of the city. He described the icy grip of terror when they heard footsteps above, the muffled shouts of German soldiers, the barking of dogs, the pounding of his heart against his ribs, a drumbeat of fear and adrenaline so loud he thought it would betray them, echoing in the confined space, amplified by the darkness. He recounted the sheer relief, almost dizzying, when they finally emerged into the safety of a hidden cellar, the quiet, so profound it was deafening, the air, thick with gratitude, silent tears. Streaming down the faces of the parents, a moment of pure, unadulterated relief, a breath of freedom. He showed Ethan a faded, creased photograph of a young woman, her eyes full of sorrow but also a flicker of defiance, who he had helped escape that night. She was a violinist, Arthur said, his voice soft with a distant pain, a lingering echo of loss, a memory of beauty amidst the horror. Her music, it was like hope, a light in the darkness. It kept us alive. It reminded us of beauty, of what we were fighting for, of what we could be again, a free people. He spoke of other acts, sabotaging German supply lines, distributing illegal newspapers filled with forbiddance, truths hiding dissidents in his own small apartment, risking everything, his own life, for the lives of others, for the soul of his city, for the future of his nation. Each story was a testament to quiet courage, to the resilience of the human spirit, to the power of ordinary people in extraordinary times, a testament to the enduring human spirit, a beacon in the darkness, a flame that refused to be extinguished, a legacy of bravery. Ethan listened, mesmerized, hanging on every word, every pause, every inflection in his grandfather's voice. A living history lesson unfolding before him, more vivid and compelling than any textbook, any documentary, any video game. This frail old man, his grandfather, had been a hero. Not the kind of hero he saw in movies, with capes and superpowers and explosions, but a quiet, courageous one whose bravery was born of necessity and a profound love for his people, for his city, for humanity. He looked at his grandfather with new eyes, a profound respect blooming in his chest, a sense of awe that made his own youthful concerns seem trivial, almost embarrassing in their self-indulgence, in their triviality. He felt a surge of pride, a deep, undeniable connection to a history far grander and more significant than anything he had ever known. He was a part of this. This was his blood, his heritage, a legacy he was only just beginning to understand, a weight and a privilege he was now ready to embrace, to carry forward, to honor. He shared these stories with Adela. They walked the streets of Prague, now seeing them not just as beautiful landmarks, but as silent witnesses to his grandfather's past, each stone imbued with a deeper meaning, each alleyway holding a secret, a memory, a whisper of what had been. Adela, with her deep knowledge of Czech history and her passion for preserving the past, filled in the gaps, adding context to Arthur's experiences, explaining the broader historical narrative, the political climate, the daily struggles of a city under occupation, the subtle acts of resistance that permeated everyday life, from hidden messages in public art to coded conversations in crowded markets. from secret meetings in ancient churches to clandestine printing presses in basements. She showed him memorials he hadn't noticed before, tucked away in quiet squares, explained the significance of certain dates and events, the sacrifices made, the heroes remembered, the pain and the triumph that shaped their nation, their identity, their very spirit. Their exploration of Prague became a shared journey into history, intertwining their present with his family's past, creating a bond that transcended mere attraction, a connection forged in shared discovery and mutual respect for the past, and a growing understanding of each other's souls, a deepening intimacy that felt profound and lasting. One evening, they sat by the Vltava River near the Kampa Island, watching the lights of the city twinkle on the water, reflecting like scattered diamonds, a shimmering tapestry of light against the deepening twilight. The air was cool and soft, carrying the faint scent of linden trees and the distant murmur of conversation, the gentle lapping of the river against its banks, a peaceful lullaby that seemed to soothe his very being, calming his restless spirit, filling him with a quiet joy. Adela leaned her head on his shoulder, her hair brushing his cheek, a comforting weight, a silent acknowledgement of their growing intimacy, a quiet promise of shared moments, of a future together. "Your grandfather, he is a good man," she murmured, her voice filled with admiration, a quiet reverence, a true hero. "We owe so much to people like him. They saved our city's soul. They kept the spirit of Prague alive, even in the darkest times. It is why we are here today, free. It is why I can dream of being a historian, of telling these stories." "Yeah," Ethan agreed, his voice thick with emotion, a lump forming in his throat. "I never knew. I never asked. I was too busy with everything else, my own little world. My games, my friends, my stupid problems. I was blind. I was so incredibly blind to what truly mattered." He felt a pang of regret for all the years he hadn't paid attention, for the superficiality of his previous existence, for the stories he almost missed, the wisdom he almost overlooked, the connection he almost lost, a profound sense of missed opportunity that he was determined to rectify. Their conversations flowed easily now, from lighthearted banter about American pop culture and the latest memes to deep discussions about life, dreams, and fears. Adela spoke of her aspirations to be a historian, to uncover and tell the forgotten stories of her country, of her profound love for Prague's layered past, its resilience, its beauty, its enduring spirit. She talked about the importance of memory, of learning from the past to build a better future, of the responsibility of carrying history forward, of ensuring that sacrifices were not forgotten. Ethan found himself opening up about his own uncertainties, his anxieties about the future, his struggles to find purpose beyond the digital realm, things he wouldn't have shared with his friends back home, who mostly talked about grades, parties, and video games, never venturing into anything truly personal, anything that required vulnerability, anything that truly mattered, anything that touched the soul. He realized he was falling for her, not just for her striking beauty, but for her kindness, her sharp intelligence, her quiet strength, and her deep, unwavering connection to her world, to her history, to her values. It was a wholesome love, built on shared discovery and genuine affection, blossoming slowly, like the quiet, persistent growth of a plant, nurtured by the rich soil of Prague, by shared experiences and profound revelations, a love that felt profoundly real and meaningful, a love that transformed him from the inside out. He started to notice the small things about Prague, the things that made it unique, that gave it its soul, its undeniable charm. The intricate details on every building, from the grotesque gargoyles on Gothic cathedrals to the vibrant Art Nouveau facades, each a testament to centuries of craftsmanship, to a dedication to beauty that permeated everyday life, not just grand monuments, but humble homes and shops. The way the light hid the cobblestones at dawn, painting them in hues of gold and rose, transforming ordinary streets into magical pathways, inviting exploration, beckoning him deeper into the city's embrace, into its secrets. The rhythmic, comforting sound of the trams rattling down the street, a constant, gentle hum that became a part of the city's soundtrack, a familiar background noise that he now found soothing, a lullaby of urban life, a pulse. The warmth of a freshly baked tretelmeg, its sugary scent filling the air, bought from a street vendor, a simple pleasure savored in the moment. A taste of authentic Prague, a sensory delight that grounded him. He found joy in the simple, community-oriented life, the friendly nods from neighbors, the leisurely pace of conversations in the park, the way people lingered over coffee in tiny cafes, savoring each sip, each moment, each connection, truly living in the present, not rushing towards the next thing, but embracing the now. It was a stark contrast to the relentless rush of his life in Meuse, the constant pressure to be productive, to be entertained, to be doing something. Always moving, always consuming, always chasing the next big thing, never quite satisfied, always wanting more, a perpetual state of dissatisfaction. That frantic energy had slowly faded away, replaced by a quiet contentment, a sense of belonging, a feeling of being truly present, truly alive, truly at peace. He felt grounded, connected, as if he had finally found his place, a home for his restless spirit, a sense of peace he hadn't known was possible, a profound shift in his entire being, a reawakening. His phone, once an extension of his hand, a constant source of distraction, now sat forgotten for hours, sometimes an entire day, its battery draining unnoticed, a relic of a past self, a symbol of his former captivity, his digital chains. He was present. He was here. He was living, truly living, for the first time, experiencing the world directly, without a screen as an intermediary, without a filter, without a digital shield, without the need for external validation. He was learning to appreciate the beauty of slowness, the richness of connection, the depth of history. He found himself sketching in a small notebook Adela had given him, a leather-bound journal similar to his grandfather's, trying to capture the intricate details of a building, the curve of a bridge, the expression on an old man's face, the play of light and shadow, the fleeting moments of beauty. He encountered the essence of Prague, its very soul. He even started reading some of the books Adela recommended, historical novels about Prague, losing himself in their pages, devouring the stories of this ancient city, its struggles and triumphs, its legends and its truth, its heart. He walked for hours, exploring hidden passages, discovering quiet courtyards, getting gloriously lost only to find his way back, guided by instinct and the familiar spire of a church. A sense of adventure replacing his initial dread, a newfound confidence in his ability to navigate the unknown. He tried new foods, learned new phrases, and found himself smiling more, genuinely, a smile that reached his eyes, a reflection of his inner peace, a joy that radiated outwards. He even started helping out at Adela's cafe sometimes, wiping tables, clearing dishes, enjoying the simple camaraderie, the feeling of being part of something, of contributing, of belonging to a community. He learned to make a decent espresso, a skill he never thought he'd acquire, and the regulars would nod their approval. He even started to recognize some of them, their faces becoming familiar, their greetings a comforting sound. Grandpa Arthur, perhaps buoyed by Ethan's presence and the renewed connection, seemed to rally. He still had his frail moments, his energy waning quickly, but his appetite improved, and his eyes held a brighter, more consistent spark, a renewed zest for life, a quiet joy that radiated from him, a sense of purpose. He and Ethan would spend afternoons playing chess, the old, carved wooden pieces clacking softly on the board. A comforting rhythm, a silent dialogue between generations, a battle of wits and patience, a shared ritual. Arthur patiently taught him strategies, explaining the nuances of the game. Their conversations a comfortable mix of Arthur's accented English and Ethan's slowly improving, still clumsy Czech. Ethan even started learning more Czech words and phrases from him, delighting in the old man's proud smiles and gentle corrections. His patience unwavering, his wisdom freely given, a precious gift. They shared meals, stories, and the quiet comfort of companionship, a bond deepening with each passing day, a bridge built across generations, across cultures, across time, a connection that felt unbreakable. Ethan would read to him from the Czech newspaper, stumbling over words, but Arthur would listen patiently, correcting him, explaining the headlines, sharing his opinions on local politics and world events, engaging him in discussions that broadened Ethan's understanding of the world beyond his Californian bubble, beyond his own narrow perspective. He even started telling Ethan more stories, not just of the war, but of his youth, his courtship with Ethan's grandmother, the simple joys and challenges of life in Prague through the decades, painting a vivid picture of a bygone era of a life rich with experience, with love, with struggle, with triumph. He learned about his grandmother, a vibrant woman Arthur described with such love that Ethan felt he was meeting her for the first time, seeing her through his grandfather's eyes, understanding the depth of their bond. He learned about family traditions, about the importance of community, about resilience in the face of adversity, about the strength that came from knowing who you were and where you came from, about the power of roots. He learned that history wasn't just dates and names, but the living, breathing stories of people, like his grandfather who shaped the world. As the summer drew to a close, a familiar dread began to creep in, but this time it was different. It wasn't resentment for being in Prague, but a deep, aching sadness at the thought of leaving. He had found something profound here, a connection to his roots, a love for a city that had slowly, irrevocably captured his heart, and a love for a girl who had opened his eyes to a different way of seeing the world, to a different way of living a new philosophy that resonated deeply within him, changing the very fabric of his being, redefining who he was. He felt like he was leaving a part of himself behind, a newly discovered, vital part that he couldn't bear to lose, a piece of his soul. One evening, a few days before his flight, Ethan sat with Grandpa Arthur by the window. The setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, casting long peaceful shadows across the room, bathing them in a warm, nostalgic glow. The air was still, filled with the scent of dinner cooking in a nearby apartment, a comforting domestic smell that now felt like home, a part of his new normal, a memory he would carry. You grew up, Ethan, Arthur said, his voice soft, a hint of pride in his tone, his hand resting gently on Ethan's arm, a gesture of affection and farewell, a blessing bestowed. You found your Prague, your history, your family. You found yourself. I am very proud of you, my grandson, more than words can say. You are a good man. Ethan nodded, a lump in his throat, tears pricking at his eyes, blurring the beautiful sunset. I did, Grandpa. Thank you. For everything, for showing me, for telling me your stories, for letting me be here, for being you. You changed my life. You taught me so much. You are part of this now, Arthur continued, tapping his chest gently. Part of us. Part of Prague. Always remember that. Remember where you come from. It is important to know your roots. They give you strength. They are your foundation. They are who you are. And now you have a new story to tell. The next morning, saying goodbye to Adela was the hardest part. They stood in the small cafe, the scent of coffee bittersweet in the air, a poignant reminder of their first meeting, their first awkward conversation, their blossoming love, their shared summer, their countless walks and talks. The usual morning bustle seemed muted, distant, as if the world outside their bubble had faded, leaving only them, two souls intertwined, two hearts beating as one. I don't want to go, Ethan confessed, his voice barely a whisper, his hand clutching hers. Unwilling to let go, his fingers tracing the lines on her palm, memorizing the feel of her skin, the warmth of her touch, the delicate bones beneath. Adela took his hand, her fingers warm and reassuring, intertwining with his, a silent comfort, a shared strength. I know, but you must. And then, you will come back. Prague will wait for you. I will wait for you. We will wait for you. It is not goodbye, only nashledanu, until we meet again. Her eyes, those deep hazel eyes, held a promise, a quiet certainty that eased some of his pain, a beacon of hope, a future he could believe in, a future they would build together. I will, Ethan promised, looking into her eyes, a future stretching out before them, uncertain but full of hope. A bridge built between two continents, two lives, two hearts. I will come back, and I'll tell everyone about Prague, about you, about Grandpa Arthur, about the echoes. I'll tell them everything. I'll make sure they know what I found here. I'll make sure your stories are heard. I'll make sure our story is heard. He hugged her tightly, a silent promise hanging between them, a silent vow whispered into the bustling air of the cafe. He kissed her, a soft, lingering kiss that tasted of coffee and possibility, of goodbye and hopeful reunion, a taste he knew he would never forget, a moment etched into his memory, a foundation for his future, a promise sealed. The journey home felt different. The plane still droned, but Ethan looked out the window, seeing the world with new eyes. No longer resentful, but reflective, filled with a quiet wonder. He wasn't just going back to his old life. He was bringing a new one with him, a richer, deeper version of himself, transformed by his experiences, by the wisdom he had gained. He carried the echoes of Prague, the stories of his grandfather's quiet heroism, the warmth of Adela's hand in his, the scent of old stone and linden trees, the sound of church bells, the taste of chelnik, the wisdom of a slower life, the understanding of community. He knew he was no longer just Ethan from the American suburbs, consumed by screens and superficial pursuits. He was Ethan, grandson of Arthur, a part of the ancient, resilient soul of Prague, and his heart was forever changed by a summer of unexpected echoes, a summer where he found not just a city, but himself. He looked forward, not backward, to the next chapter, knowing that Prague, and the love he found there, would always be a part of him, a guiding star. He began to plan his return, not just a visit, but a way to truly integrate this new part of himself into his future. He thought about studying abroad, about learning Czech properly, about a life that felt more connected, more meaningful, a life lived with intention, with purpose. The buzzing of his phone, now back in his home time zone, no longer held the same urgency. He had found a different kind of signal, a deeper connection, a purpose that resonated with his soul, a quiet strength that would guide him. He knew this was just the beginning of his journey, not the end, and the echoes of Prague would always call him home, a constant, beautiful whisper in his heart. He arrived back in California, the familiar sprawl of freeways and strip malls, a jarring contrast to Prague's ancient beauty. His parents greeted him with relief and curiosity, noticing the subtle but profound changes in their son. He was quieter, more observant, less glued to his phone. He spoke of Prague with a reverence they hadn't expected, his words painting vivid pictures of cobblestone streets, ancient spires, and the warmth of a community. He told them about Grandpa Arthur, not just as a frail old man, but as a quiet hero, a man who had lived a life of immense courage and dignity. His father listened, a newfound respect in his eyes, realizing the true gift he had unknowingly given his son. Ethan found that his old life felt smaller. His friends were still caught in the same cycles of daming and superficial chatter. He tried to explain, to share his experiences, but their eyes glazed over. They couldn't grasp the depth of what he had seen, what he had felt. The beach still looked beautiful, but it lacked the history, the soul, the quiet magic of the Vltava. The gaming tournaments felt hollow, the victories meaningless compared to the real-life challenges his grandfather had faced. He found himself spending less time online, more time outside, walking, sketching, simply observing. He sought out local libraries, devouring books on Czech history, trying to bridge the gap between his two worlds. He started cooking simple Czech dishes in his mother's kitchen, filling the suburban house with unfamiliar, comforting aromas. His bond with his father deepened. They talked for hours about Grandpa Arthur, about their family's roots in Prague. His father shared old photographs, stories he hadn't thought to tell before, memories of his own childhood visits to Prague, now seen through a new lens of understanding and appreciation. Ethan realized his father, too, carried a piece of Prague within him, a silent legacy. But it was Adela who remained the strongest connection. Their video calls became a daily ritual, bridging the time difference with shared laughter and deep conversations. He described his struggles to adapt back to American life, the feeling of being a stranger in his own home. She listened patiently, offering words of understanding and encouragement, reminding him of the beauty he had found, the person he had become. They talked about their dreams, their futures. Adela spoke of her university studies, her plans to work in a Prague museum. Ethan, once directionless, began to seriously consider studying history, perhaps even Slavic languages, at college. The idea of returning to Prague, not just as a visitor, but as someone who could truly understand and contribute, took root in his mind. He started saving money from a new part-time job, not for gaming gear or concert tickets, but for a plane ticket back to Prague. He practiced his Czech diligently, using flashcards and language apps, determined to speak fluently for Adela, for his grandfather, for himself. He wanted to be able to converse, truly converse, without a translation app, to fully immerse himself. He even found a small Czech community center in a nearby city, attending their cultural events, feeling a sense of belonging he hadn't anticipated. He was no longer just a kid sent away. He was actively seeking out his heritage, building his future. The months passed, marked by the changing seasons in California and the steady progress of his plans. He got accepted into a university with a strong history program and a study abroad option in Central Europe. He told Adela first, his voice trembling with excitement. Her joyful cry on the video call was the sweetest sound he had ever heard. The day finally came. A year after his reluctant departure, Ethan stood at the airport gate, his passport in hand, a different kind of excitement bubbling within him. There was no resentment now, only eager anticipation. He wasn't being sent away. He was going home. He carried a small, carefully wrapped gift for Grandpa Arthur, a new, comfortable blanket, hand-knitted by his mother, a tangible symbol of their renewed family connection. And for Adela, a small silver charm, a miniature California poppy, a symbol of his home, now intertwined with hers. The flight was still long, but this time he didn't watch movies or play games. He gazed out the window, imagining the red roofs and spires, the winding cobblestone streets, the familiar faces. He thought of Grandpa Arthur, his quiet strength and his incredible stories. He thought of Adela, her bright eyes and her infectious love for her city. He thought of the scent of coffee and trailneck, the chime of church bells, the gentle lapping of the Vltava. He thought of the echoes, no longer distant whispers, but clear, vibrant calls, leading him back. When he stepped off the plane in Prague, the crisp European air felt like a welcome embrace. He navigated the airport with ease, his Czech phrases flowing more naturally, and then he saw them. Grandpa Arthur, frail but standing tall, a wide, proud smile on his face. And beside him, Adela, her dark hair shining, her hazel eyes alight with joy. Ahoy, Ethane. Adela cried, rushing forward, her arms open. He dropped his bag and embraced her fiercely, the scent of her familiar and comforting. Ahoj, Adela, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I'm home. Then he turned to his grandfather, a profound love radiating from him. He hugged the old man gently, carefully, feeling the fragile strength in his embrace. Dapper den ditto, Ethan said, using the informal Czech for grandpa, a word that now felt perfectly natural, perfectly right. Jandomo. I am home. Grandpa Arthur's blue eyes twinkled, a tear tracing a path down a wrinkled cheek. Vidage doma much klux, he whispered. Welcome home, my boy. And in that moment, standing on the ancient soil of his ancestors, surrounded by the people who had shown him the true meaning of connection and belonging, Ethan knew with absolute certainty that the echoes of Prague would always call him home, but now he was finally ready to answer. This was not just a summer, but the beginning of a life connected, a life lived with purpose, a life rich with history and love. He had found his place, not just on a map, but in his heart.